From our studios around the world, this is Eat Well, Travel Better, the Business of Food Travel podcast. Every month, we bring you the world's leading culinary tourism industry professionals and share with you strategies, tactics, and information that help make you a more effective leader, communicator, and professional in our culinary tourism industry. I'm your host, Eric Wolf. Thanks for listening. Welcome to episode 59. Today, we will be speaking with Theo Cromhout. Theo is a proud South African travel industry professional who has lived and loved a full life of travel, tourism, hospitality, food, and wine. With over 30 years of experience, Theo is a respected member of the South African tourism industry. He has held senior positions in operations, marketing, and sales in both South Africa and abroad. Theo is currently the CEO of Boshendal Wine Estate, one of South Africa's oldest and most historic wineries. Theo, welcome to the Business of Food Travel podcast, and thank you for being on the show today. I was looking at your background, and you have traveled to so many places. You kind of remind me a little bit of my career in my early days when I traveled around the world. But one thing that came to mind when I was looking at everywhere you've traveled, would you say that you are a food lover with the travel passion or a travel lover with the food passion?
Oh, my word, Eric. Well, first of all, thank you and good to spend time with you. I would find it very difficult to differentiate between the two. In my view, they go hand in hand. They always have. That's a very difficult question to answer, but I love to travel and I love to eat. And I always love to immerse myself in the local food culture whenever I travel. But in saying that, where I choose to travel is largely dictated by the kind of food and wine that I enjoy. Yeah, I would think it's probably a bit of both, to be quite frank.
And you've lived in South Africa, you've lived in London, looks like Indonesia as well. Do you have a favorite place where you've lived in the world?
Well, first and foremost, I'd probably have to say it's South Africa, because despite spending a lot of time traveling around the world and working in wonderful countries, it was my choice to come back to South Africa. But I would say, apart from that, I would probably think that London was, for me, one of the most extraordinary experiences. And that's probably because of the incredible culinary offering. For me, it's a real melting pot of cultures. So I would probably say London, and having the opportunity to travel around the UK, that would be, for me, one of the most memorable experiences.
Well, that's understandable. London's a great town, but I think it's great that you said that your favorite place is South Africa. I mean, there's no place like home, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm proudly South African, Eric, and I don't apologize for it. But in saying that, I mean, as I reflect, Indonesia was also an incredible experience. There, I would probably say I lived in Jakarta because it was a very difficult place to live. The hotel company I worked for used to, every second month, send us somewhere outside of Jakarta just to help keep our sanity. It was really the food and the culinary experiences that helped me determine where I went. So we obviously spent a lot of time traveling back to Singapore, which was less than an hour away, to Bali, and then all of the islands around Java. That was also an incredible experience.
Yeah, I've lived in Singapore as well, and I've been to Jakarta and Bali, so I know the geographies that you're talking about. When I was in Jakarta, we have an ambassador there, and her son took me around to a grocery store because I was looking for good coffee and good chocolate. And I found the good coffee, but I only found the good chocolate when it was an Indonesian woman who made the chocolates. It wasn't actually the chocolate products in the store were not that impressive, but it was the chocolate that was homemade that was the impressive stuff.
Yeah, I think like you, we try to stay off the main. We try to get off the beaten track. I think we try to find whenever we travel. I think whether it's yourself or certainly the passion that I have, it's to try and find artisan food producers. You don't want mainstream products. You want to get a real sense of the place that you're visiting. By doing so, get off the beaten track and find food shops and specialty food shops and dining experiences that are authentic. So yeah, I totally get that. And that's pretty much how we ate across Indonesia. It was a lot of street food, a lot of warungs where you could just get the most incredible ingredients prepared in front of you, but in the most remarkable places. I mean, whether it was on the side of a road or on a beach, or I'll never forget the most incredible seafood experience I ever had was at a seafood restaurant in Bali called Ulam. If I could just describe it as a couple of poles on the ground with a canopy over it, but we sat there for hours and hours just eating and experiencing the most remarkable seafood cooked in an Indonesian way. It was just, I'll never forget that experience.
Indonesian food is fantastic, but how did that compare to a typical South African braai?
Well, now you're getting me going. Now I'm beginning to salivate. That's a great question. Obviously, it was. I think it's the same ocean. Although here in South Africa, we benefit from two oceans. We've got the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean, and different seafood comes out of each of those oceans. So I would actually say that the seafood offering in South Africa is probably superior. Again, I'm proudly South African. Apart from the variety of seafood, we also benefit from the way in which many different cultures prepare and eat seafood. We're a very, very diverse society, a very diverse country. Regardless of where you're from, you can prepare seafood in very, very different ways, whether it's an Indian prawn curry or a seafood curry, or whether it's bouillabaisse. And you refer to the braai. I mean, one of South Africans' best pastime is to have a braai, but not necessarily throw a lamb chop or a steak. It's about having a fish braai, whether that's fried crayfish, snook, yellowtail, or a variety of other fish, lionfish that we get in our oceans and our rivers. So yeah, I would say that when it comes to seafood, South Africa, we rank very, very highly in terms of the quality and the variety of the seafood that we have. But again, it's not just about the ingredient, but how you prepare it. We've certainly got a lot of culinary influences being such a diverse country. So we draw on that.
I've had some great food in South Africa for sure, and I think it's an interesting study for someone not from South Africa because obviously you have the Indian influences there on the East Coast in Durban, you have the English influence, you have the Dutch influence, and you have, of course, all of the native African tribal influences. So it really is a melting pot of so many different cultures and flavors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we down in the Cape, the Malay influence is very, very strong as well. If you go inland to places like the Karoo, there's a very, very different style of cooking. There's inland in the Karoo, and going up further north in the country to more rural areas, I think we've got something like 11 official languages in South Africa. So certainly a lot of the cultural cuisine varies from region to region. Yeah, it's an incredible experience. We are truly blessed, not just with the ingredient, but as you said, we've got a variety of cultures, and that all influences the kind of cuisine that we eat. And we've also got obviously a large population of French and Italian and Portuguese communities across the country, and those are also, when you travel through our towns and our cities, kind of restaurant experiences you'll have. You'll get traditional South African restaurants, of course, but you'll get wonderful Italian restaurants, French, Greek.
Theo, one thing I wanted to ask you about is I know that South Africa has got so many different historic and immigrant and colonial cultures, part of its culinary makeup. And I have to look at other cultures that have a similar situation like Brazil or United States or Australia to some extent. And I'm just wondering, do all of those different culinary cultures come together in a way that creates fellowship and mutual understanding in South Africa, or is the emphasis still placed on the divisiveness that unfortunately has shadowed South Africa's past?
No, Eric. I think we refer to the Rainbow Nation quite often. And obviously that refers to our diversity. In South Africa, there are two things that unite us as a people. One is sport. Whenever we've won an event on the sport field, it unites the country in an extraordinary way. And then around food, as I was mentioning earlier, you've got a lot of communities, diverse communities through all of the towns and cities of South Africa. So apart from the diversity of being South African, whether you're English, Afrikaans, or African, or Malay, or Indian, we've got a lot of Italian communities, Greek communities, Portuguese communities, French, German. So I think food is just a wonderful way to unite people. One of my favorite quotes is Keith Bellows, who said, when you think of a place, it's because of the food you've eaten and the people you've shared it with. So I think in South Africa, we're a very hospitable country. Our people, and as a people, we're very, very friendly. And you'll never be short of an opportunity to get South Africans from all walks of life and all communities, from all backgrounds, coming together around good food, good drink, and just in the most remarkable setting. So I think sports together with food is a big unifier in South Africa, and I firmly believe that.
That's great to hear because the power of food in affecting mutual relationships and perspectives and perceptions of people is tremendous. And to know that food can be used as a tool for unification as well is great to hear because it's not always that case in some places.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give you an example, Eric, on the 25th of September every year is our National Heritage Day. And almost wrongly, it's been termed or dubbed National Braai Day. And braaiing historically is seen very much as an Afrikaans pastime or an Afrikaans way of preparing cuisine and cooking food. But in actual fact, it's not. Every time the debate comes up every year, it's not about Heritage Day being Braai Day, but it's about whatever heritage you come from, whatever your culture is, whatever ingredient you're cooking can be done on fire. But Heritage Day is not just about having a braai. It's about celebrating your own cuisine, no matter who you are, where you're from. So if it means doing a wonderful Cape Malay curry or celebrating having a pasta festival with friends and family around the table, whether it's from South America having asada style fire cooking, it doesn't really matter. So for me, I'm one of those people in the country that I have a bit of a chuckle every year on the 25th of September because it creates quite a lot of debate. Well, it's not Braai Day because what if you're not Afrikaans? For me, it's not about that. It's about celebrating your food and your culture through your food. That's what's important.
Yeah. I have a fantastic food memory from South Africa. I was invited to go up to Joburg, and the local tourism office hired a guide and took me around, and they took me to Wandi's place. Do you know it?
Who, of course,
Yeah, I would hope so.
it's an institution.
Indeed.
Apart from being one of the most incredible human beings, it's Wandi's place, is what it's called. It's in Soweto. The food, the atmosphere, the energy, the vibe, it's an extraordinary experience. Most people from overseas that visit South Africa and spend a couple of days in Johannesburg, it would be criminal not to go via Wandi's place because you get a real sense of place when you go and eat with him. The food, the music, the people,
the smells, everything.
The smells. I mean, that's a real example of where people from all walks of life, from all races, when you're in Wandi's place, it's just one of the most unifying experiences. We were talking about it earlier. A lot of people are put off by, it's in a former township or it's in Soweto. Not at all. It's safe. It's an incredible experience. And I think that's a true reflection of the new South Africa, in my view.
The World Food Travel Association is the world's leading authority on food and beverage tourism. Founded in 2001, each year we serve a community of 200,000 professionals in more than 150 countries. Thinking about a career change because of the pandemic or looking to improve your current skills? Consider our bespoke training and certification programs in culinary tourist guiding, culinary tour operations, restaurant and food service, and culinary destination marketing. Visit academy.worldfoodtravel.org to learn more and get started. I think it was probably the most unique place that anyone took me to eat. And why would I come to South Africa to have Italian food or an English tea or something like that when I'm getting the real South Africa, the historic South Africa right there? And that's something that I couldn't find, say, in London or the United States, or I would be really, really hard pressed to find in those countries. But when you're in South Africa, it's almost like you said, a must see, a must experience.
Yeah, and that's just one example up in Johannesburg. I mean, if you come down to the Cape and you go up the West Coast, you'll get culinary experiences that are equally unique, authentic, and memorable. One place springs to mind up the West Coast is a place called Strandloper, where you're literally sitting on a wooden bench with a table around a huge fire, and there's just a steady flow of seafood that's prepared on a fire and then brought to the table. I mean, I don't know many places in the world where you can experience that. I've had a similar experience in Indonesia. That was just extraordinary. Whether it's a setting in a vineyard in the winelands, whether it's out under the stars, out on safari, having a braai. There's so many incredible experiences across the country. You described it as unique. I think that's what makes South Africa so special. There's so many surprises, and that's what makes us special.
Of course, what you were just describing up along the coast there, what would be better than having that kind of a meal? Nothing would make it better than a nice crisp glass of Boshendal wine, right?
Absolutely. And I'd probably go with the Chardonnay on that occasion. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we speak a lot about food. In my mind, Eric, they go hand in hand. I would never, for me, any memorable meal has to be joined with a wonderful bottle of wine that reflects the country where we are. Obviously, it was a little bit more difficult to find really good wine in Indonesia. And I guess that's why I loved London and the UK so much, because wines from all over the world are so accessible. But here in South Africa, I mean, we do have the most extraordinary offering. We've got so many different wine routes, over 1,000 wineries around the Western Cape alone. It's a really progressive part of our economy. There's some wonderful new estates and new wine regions that are opening up. New winemakers establishing themselves with their New World wines. Yeah, it's obviously apart from the food. I'm very passionate and very proud of the wines that South Africa produces, because we do produce world-class wines.
You do indeed. And let me ask you, I remember when I was there, I had fantastic wine after fantastic wine. There was no end to the parade of amazing high quality wines. But when I'm overseas, say back in the UK or the United States, I have a really hard time finding those wines, at least for a decent price point. I'm not going to pay 50 or $60 plus or pounds for a bottle of wine. Why am I not finding such great South African wines at a good price point overseas?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think if you look, obviously, I think if you look at our political past, South Africa, there were sanctions against South Africa up until the late 80s or the early 90s. And then after the first election in 1994, that really opened up South Africa and allowed us to get our products, not just wine product, but all sorts of exports onto the shelves around the world. So to a large degree, maybe we were on the back foot. But I think a lot of work has been done to market wines, South African wines overseas. Obviously, some markets are more lucrative and more popular than others, but I don't think that we're ever going to be able to do enough to get our wines onto the shelves. I mean, obviously, if you're looking at different price points, take the UK for example, you will find a lot of more lower end or mid scale price point wines at that price point, whether it's Tesco's or Sainsbury's or other retailers like that, but if you go into other wine establishments like Laithwaite's, etc., and there you will find some of the top South African wines. Waitrose, I know, is a retailer, and then obviously there's a lot of other boutique wine shops that have access to our more premium offerings.
Well, I was with a friend in London recently, and he took me to the Hedonism wine store, and he showed me a bottle of, quote, one of his favorite South African wines with a 60-pound price tag. And that's not that unreasonable, but that's not an everyday wine either.
No, exactly right. You know, when I finished my hotel school training, I spent my first 2 years working in London. And there we would obviously still very loyal to South Africa. We would pick up wines from a Sainsbury's or a Tesco's from around 3, 4, 5 pounds. But having lived in the UK later on in my career and obviously traveled quite a lot, I think that I picked up some of our very, very best wines from 15 pounds, 20, 25 pounds. For that, you can get a really, really top South African wine, a really well-known and respected label.
Sounds like I need to go wine shopping with you.
You do. You absolutely do. Well,
Well,
we taste, then we shop.
okay. Well, speaking of tasting, let's talk about the Boschendal Wine Estate. Obviously, it's a prominent location. It's a beautiful wine estate. I remember seeing it when I was living there. How did you find your way to the estate there?
Oh, what a wonderful question. Well, I found my way to the estate many, many years ago when I first took the position, and I've only been the CEO for the last 5 months. But when I was going through the interview process, I made the point quite a few times that, you know, Boschendal is one of South Africa's most prized and historic flagship brands. And it's certainly one of the oldest wine estates in South Africa with one of the richest histories and heritages. So growing up as a kid, and then obviously getting into the industry and starting to love my food and wine. Whenever I came down to the Cape, it would always be a place I would drive past in absolute awe. I always viewed Boschendal as being, again, one of those iconic brands. When I was working at a private game reserve, got a call and asked if I had an interest to return to Cape Town. When I understood it was Boschendal, I mean, quite honestly, Eric, there was no hesitation. The pride and privilege that I feel being associated with a brand like this, and the responsibility of loving and nurturing one of our most historic brands in South Africa, I take it with a great sense of responsibility, and it was an opportunity I never would have let slip by. I feel truly blessed to be working where I am.
Well, you're right. It is a great brand. And we did not do a tasting when I was there, but I look forward to coming to visit you because it's such a stunning venue, also in a stunning part of the country.
Yes, it is. I think our location, obviously, we pride ourselves on our rich history and heritage. We were the second estate in South Africa to start producing MCC. So that's obviously one of our great legacies. But one thing that we probably underplay to a large degree is our location, because obviously, in the context of the Western Cape, you've got three of the main wine towns being Paarl, Franschhoek, and Stellenbosch. We're fortunate to be located between 15 and 16 kilometers from each of them. So we are quite strategically located in the heart of the winelands, literally with the three major towns less than 15, 20 minutes away. So any visitor traveling through the Western Cape and traveling between those three towns, most will tend to pop in and enjoy the farm, the wine, the buildings, the food, and all of the other experiences on the farm. I mean, we're obviously not just a wine estate, although we are one of the oldest wine estates, but we're also a working farm. So we've got a variety of livestock, Black Angus cows, sheep, Duroc pigs, 3,000 chickens, goats. One of our philosophies and one of our driving principles is we practice regenerative farming. So we're an 1,800 hectare farm. A lot of the soil and a lot of the land is dead, obviously because we've overgrazed historically, not now, but historically have overgrazed, and through the use of chemicals and fertilizers, the soil has died. Part of our philosophy is to regenerate that soil using regenerative farming practices. So that's a very, very important part of our philosophy, and it's an important part of our story. And we're very successfully taking quite large blocks of land that were unproductive, and through creative farming and rotating our livestock at different intervals, we're bringing the soil back to life and planting new crops, planting new vineyards. So, yeah, it's a lot more than the history and the wine. It's a wonderful farm. It's an incredible experience, and we're located in my mind, one of the most beautiful food and wine locations in the world.
I'm looking on the Boschendal website, and for those who are just listening and have not yet been to the website, there's quite a few activities there. You have a farm shop and butchery, picnics are offered, obviously wine tastings, horse and pony rides, wine sales on site, mountain bike hire, restaurants, as in plural,
Yeah.
functions and events, and accommodation. So, would you say that Boschendal is a leader in the winelands in terms of developing that area as a tourism destination? And when did all this diversification of product come to the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would be reluctant. I wouldn't certainly be arrogant to say that we are the leader, but we're certainly one of the leaders, Eric. And I say that with a lot of humility and humbleness. There are basically three parts to the business. We've obviously got the farming operation, which is obviously our grapes that we provide for the wine. We're also one of the largest plum producers in South Africa. But we're diversifying our crops. So we're growing proteas, blueberries, citrus, tangs, nectarines, and a variety of other fruits. That's the farming side. And obviously, because we're a regenerative farm, we've got a large number of livestock as well. And it all works in harmony to regenerate the soil. So that's the farm. On the hospitality side, obviously, we have a lot of accommodation, a lot of different accommodation offerings. We can accommodate up to 144 people on the farm through the variety of accommodations. And then probably one of the newest pillars of the business, which to answer your question has really come to force in the last 2 to 3 years, is our retail, whereby we've got a butchery, a food lab or production kitchen on the farm. So we use a lot of our own ingredients, whether it's beef, pork, lamb, together with all of the fruits and vegetables that we grow on the farm. We produce a variety of specialty foods that we sell either online or in our farm shop. That business has grown quite substantially. So within the next year, we are expanding the retail side of the business. We're going to be building beautiful food emporium, which will be like our existing farm shop, but just much bigger, with a wider variety of specialty foods that we grow and produce on the farm. So I think in that regard, together obviously with all the activities that you mentioned, We're most famous for our picnics. The gardens in Boschendal are quite breathtaking and spectacular. So the picnics over the weekends, we're doing hundreds of picnics a day over the weekend. But people just come and, I mean, we talk about living our farm your way. We try to appeal and make to a very wide market. Obviously, we're one of the most historic and one of the oldest farms in South Africa. So we're on the map. We attract a lot of people to the farm. But when they're on the farm, we just make sure we offer them a good experience. So they're free to walk around our orchards, they're free to jog around the farm, mountain bike trails, horse trails, obviously the picnics I've mentioned, walking through our beautiful kitchen garden, our VAF kitchen garden, which is quite substantial. Again, produces a lot of our ingredients for our 2 restaurants, as well as our farm shop. And then again, once people are here, they taste wine, they spend money in the farm shop, and then they eat, they drink, and they merry in one of the 2 restaurants. So yeah, I think I wouldn't say I would again be reluctant to say we are a market leader, but we're certainly one of the farms in the Western Cape that is leading the market, if I can put it in a more humble way. Yeah, we're very proud of the product, the brand, and the experience, and certainly the diversity of experiences, all again related around food, wine, and beverage. So I think that does probably put us in a very unique spot, because I think there are very few other competitors that do offer the variety of activities in terms of the farm, the livestock, the produce, the retail, the hospitality, with all of the other activities. Yeah, we have fun.
And I'd like to pick up on something you were saying. You said that you were about to open a food emporium and you already have your retail. And I think that is a fantastic statement, because you represent a winery, and one of the oldest wineries in South Africa, so a prominent brand. But here you are as a brand making a statement about food. And I remember some of the food products I had, from the peppadews to the olive oil. I mean, there was an olive oil tasting room in Stellenbosch, I remember, and such amazing quality. And I don't think anyone ever thinks of olive oil coming from South Africa. And there were so many other products, the kudu meat, for example, some of the fruits that I had. And I don't think people really think of South Africa yet as a culinary destination, although I think you are. I think people are really only thinking about the wine so far when it comes to South Africa.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think from my side, Eric, that's why I'm so passionate about culinary travel. And we've had a few discussions before where, as a destination, I think we probably put a little bit too much emphasis on wine tourism at the expense of everything else. Certainly here at Boschendal, one of our important philosophies, we recognize the contribution that this business makes to the surrounding community. So by using all of the fresh produce that we grow and rear on the farm to produce a variety of different food products that we sell either online or in the farm shop, we're creating jobs. We're creating a bigger economy than just wine tourism. Again, that's a responsibility we take very, very seriously. So we see the expansion of the farm shop with the food emporium opening up in the latter part of next year as not just an opportunity to diversify the already fantastic range of food products that we're producing and selling. It's obviously going to enhance the Boschendal brand. And in doing so, we're creating more jobs and just making the surrounding community a lot more sustainable and making a bigger contribution towards the economy. So these are all areas that play a very, very significant role in the fabric of Boschendal and the kind of society that we're wanting to create. And I think that's the beautiful thing about tourism as a whole, is the contribution it makes to local economies, the sense of pride that we create in the products that we produce. You speak about olive oil. It's funny, our owner is on the farm at the moment, and we took a drive with our head farmer, and we've identified a piece of land where we're wanting to almost quadruple the size of our olive tree orchard. We produce our own olive oil, and it's such a popular product, and it's done so well, we need to expand. So that'll create more jobs. We'll produce more olive oil, and who knows, maybe you'll see a bottle of Boschendal olive oil in Harvey Nichols or Harrod or wherever.
So I have to ask, clearly your wine estate is not the only business in South Africa that's helping to promote the local foods as well. And I remember when I was there, I guess that was 2005, there wasn't really much emphasis on this. And still, this is 17 years later, and it's just now starting to come to fruition. So what took so long for the market to organize?
It's a good question. I think if you look at the reason why people come to South Africa, the studies show that over 85% of international visitors will visit one of two attractions. One is Cape Town in the Western Cape, and the other one is a safari experience. And then they might increase their length of stay by including other destinations. But typically, Cape Town, the winelands, and safari are the assets which pretty much dominates South Africa as a destination. That's been historical. I do think it's changing, and it's changing very, very quickly. And I also think that as destinations evolve, not just South Africa, but other destinations evolve and mature, so will their marketing strategies. That's why maybe historically we've relied very heavily on promoting Cape Town and the winelands as a wine tourism destination. But again, if you look at the success of so many other destinations around the world that have beautiful wine offerings, they've led the way in terms of expanding beyond wine. I mean, just look at destinations like Australia, Italy, France, Spain, California. They were all world-leading wine destinations, but now people visit them and those destinations are marketed with the strengths of their culinary offering, not just their wine tourism offering. I think South Africa, while we might be slowly catching up, it is changing. While we're obviously very proud of our wine offering as a destination, there's a wonderful opportunity for our regional and national tourism bodies and marketing organizations to really capitalize on the strength of food and wine travel, or food and beverage travel, or culinary travel, almost cast the net and the messaging slightly wider than just wine. I think it's a great opportunity. And a lot of businesses, I think, have started to adapt and adjust their marketing strategies accordingly. But I think we're only going to make serious inroads if our leading tourism authorities take a strategic decision to say it's not just the value of the rand, it's not just the quality of the variety of destinations that we offer. We need to start focusing on our marketing messaging that appeals to a wider audience by focusing on food travel or food and beverage travel or culinary travel. I think that's a very, very strong vehicle. The point is, I think we need the leadership of our tourism marketing bodies to recognize that and to obviously start investing in it.
It's interesting you talk about the leadership of your tourism bodies. I remember the conversations that I had with different entities down there, not just the Cape Tourism Office, but FEDHASA and the National Tourism Board as well. No one seemed to really quite understand that food was an attraction. And I think that they were just starting to really get the message out there about the wine, but I don't think anyone really saw food as an integral component. To me, it seemed like it was a big piece of the puzzle that was missing. Do you think they're ready today to take those steps, or do you think that we're still in the training stages?
No, I think we are ready. In fact, Eric, I think the timing couldn't be more opportune. I think as a destination, we have a remarkable opportunity. And the reason I say that is if you look at the key destinations that long haul destinations that South Africa competes with, these are strategies that they've adopted. So I think, South Africa as a destination is recognizing this more and more. I think there's certainly a growing movement that identifies South Africa as being attractive from a culinary perspective rather than just wine. And also it makes sense because ultimately the wine offering, the wine tourism offering for South Africa is predominantly contained in Cape Town and the Western Cape. Yet culinary travel or food travel gives us an opportunity to market and promote so many other regions and areas across South Africa. And that's where I think we're able to adopt these strategies. We'll become far more inclusive and we'll open up different destinations to different markets. So we're all competing with destinations around the world. So if we don't wake up and if we don't get smart around our marketing strategies, I think as a destination, we're going to get left behind. But we've got incredible talent, whether it's at South African tourism or down here in the Western Cape, whether it's with Westgrow or Cape Town tourism. There's a lot of very dynamic professionals that are committed to our destination. We're all very passionate about our country. So there is an appetite. There's always going to be an appetite, especially now in a more competitive marketplace, for these tourism bodies to look at new, innovative ways to market our destination. To answer your question, I think it's a wonderful opportunity and the timing is perfect.
Well, you said it yourself that there's all the competition out there, and a lot of destinations have realized that they can use their food and beverage products as attractions to lure visitors. And I think South Africa has tremendous opportunity, but it just hasn't realized it yet. And as our newest ambassador of our association in South Africa, I think you'll have an opportunity to hopefully lead the conversation on that and help to influence that development.
Absolutely, Eric. And I think from that perspective, all I intend to do is start the conversation. I've been in the industry for over 30 years and we've come a long way as a destination. I mean, I was studying at a hotel school before the 1994 elections, our first democratic election in 1994. And we've all seen and experienced how South Africa has grown in popularity and grown as a destination, despite a lot of the challenges that we faced. But right now, especially post-COVID, there's a lot of passion. So, yeah, for me, there's obviously a very strong network of professionals in South Africa, a lot of people at tourism marketing bodies, organizations, other wine estates, and other hotel companies that are all looking at to engage and start new conversations around how and where we can attract different visitors from different parts of the world. So I think for me, to simplify it, that's where we have to start. We have to start with, as you say, having the conversation, recognizing the importance of food and beverage travel, and see it as an opportunity to expand the net beyond just wine tourism. Yeah, I think it's going to take time. South Africans are very, very passionate around their food. It'll be an easy conversation to have. It'll be an easier conversation if we actually have it around a table with some good food and wine. But that's the plan. That's the
Indeed.
plan.
Theo, you're clearly a visionary. If you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice, what would you tell yourself?
I would say if it doesn't scare you, it's not worth doing. That's the one thing. The other thing is find your purpose as soon as you can. I think what we do in life and how we do it, that's the easy bit. The difficult bit is finding out why we do what we do. But once you found your purpose, it'll make everything after that a lot easier. So I would tell my younger self, find your purpose.
And also getting out of your comfort zone. I think that that's the idea to not follow everyone else and to lead your own path is such a hard lesson for a young person to understand. But I think it's the most important lesson to understand because if everyone follows everyone else, then we just have clones growing up. But you want those unique ideas to cultivate. And that's what I think creates an interesting society, interesting businesses, and interesting people.
Well, you've made me rethink my answer because when you say that, my advice to a younger me would be to travel. Take the path less traveled because that will make all the difference. That to me, that would also be a valuable bit of advice. I finished hotel school. I finished my matric. I was given £740 on a return ticket by my father and spent my first year overseas selling timeshare. I came back, studied at hotel school, and then just jumped on a plane and went and worked and traveled again. By doing that, it really opened my eyes, it opened my perspective. The beauty of travel is something that is so profound. And it just offers so many different perspectives, so many different flavors.
I agree with you. Travel is definitely the best education. Well, Theo, we need to wrap up for today, but is there a last piece of advice that you would like to give anyone who's just entering the food and beverage tourism industry, a new business owner perhaps?
Yeah, I think we live in an experience economy. Focus your attention on just creating the most extraordinary experience for your guests. I think for me, that would be my advice. Think differently, try and do things that have never been done before, be creative. There's so many restaurants out there, there's so many wine estates, there's so many destinations. So be unique, create a memorable and authentic experience. Do stuff that's never been done before, but just try and delight your customers in a way that they've never been delighted. To me, that's the art of service. It's the art of travel. It's the art of hospitality. That would be my advice.
The art of hospitality. That is not an easy art form to espouse. You either have it or you don't. I think you can learn it, but it takes some time.
It certainly does. I would say it's time well spent, Eric. It's the most remarkable industry. It's so enriching. It's so rewarding. It brings us so many opportunities to engage with people, to travel locally, to travel internationally, So it's an industry that comes with a lifetime of perks.
Indeed, it does. Well, Theo, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure chatting with you. And I hope that everyone listening today will be inspired by your words of wisdom and the experience that you bring to our industry. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eric. I'm very grateful for the opportunity and look forward to welcoming you to Boschendal.
I look forward to seeing you there. That's it for this episode of the Eat Well, Travel Better podcast. This episode is brought to you by the World Food Travel Association and its Academy professional training programs. We'd like to hear from you. We invite you to share your ideas, questions, and thoughts about the podcast by emailing us at help@worldfoodtravel.org, or you can connect with us and comment about the episode on major social media platforms. Special thanks to our guest Theo Cromhout, and thanks to you for joining us. I'm Eric Wolf, wishing you a safe, happy, and productive month ahead.